My name is Michel Roux. I'm the director of Rhode Island Jobs with Justice. I wasn't actually expected to speak, so I have somebody else's notes. Rhode Island Jobs with Justice is a coalition of labor, faith, community, and student organizations that's been around for 23 years. We focus on civil rights, workers' rights, and justice for all Rhode Islanders, but not just in the way that you usually think about it. We think about it as a bottom-up, fighting forward and pushing as far as we can to make our stake in the world better, brighter, and more open for everybody. You with me with that? Yeah. So we could do this here with the New Poor People's Campaign, which I feel like it's what an honor to get asked to speak at this. This is something I was really looking forward to. Dr. King, 50 years ago, in 2 weeks, or 50 years ago, 45 days, was killed when he was standing on a picket line for garbage workers in Memphis, Tennessee. He was fighting for better wages, recognition for those workers. And that's sort of what this fight means. He saw it as not just a fight for one worker and one vote, or one wage and one better condition, but for all workers together as a poor people's movement. Black, white, Latino, Asian, all of us. He said that he'd like to see the barrios empty, the hills of Appalachia empty, and the ghettos empty, and all of us march to Washington, or where our leaders are, and demand jobs, demand justice, demand equity, and demand inclusion.
That's right. That's right.
But right now, we are further away from that goal than we've ever been before. Yesterday was Mother's Day, right? A holiday that was formed against militarism, right? So as I was writing to my mom, I was reminded that there are 219,000 mothers in prison as we speak.
Wow.
Most of them are African American, Latino, or indigenous women. This is a call for abolition, right? We can't reform a system that'll tear families apart, right? We saw ICE agents come into people's homes and strip mothers of newborns away from their families and lock them in the hellhole of Bristol County lockup in Massachusetts. Is that a just system?
No.
Can we reform that system?
Yes.
No, we gotta wipe out that system.
We're coming from it.
We can't reform that.
Okay.
ICE needs to be disbanded. ICE needs to be disbanded once and for all before we can have justice for anybody. Right? You feel that?
Yes.
All right. But that's not just it. When we look at the fight that we had last year, or the past 2 years, over the Community Safety Act, which brought justice for teenagers and youth in Providence who are being harassed, who are being strip searched, not allowed to have access to the language that they spoke when they're being interviewed by police, strip searched by officers of opposite genders, and put on a secret gang database. It took us 4 years to move that. And that was a basic injustice that should have taken us 1 day to decide, right?
Yeah.
And we know what's right in our hearts. But we're looking at a state right now where poverty and disconnectedness with each other is at the highest, some of the highest points it's been in history. I just read a statistic that in Rhode Island, in the United States, 51.8% of children are born in poverty. 51.8%. This is a moral, ethical crisis that we're facing as a nation.
Fight poverty! Not the poor!
We lock up our brothers and sisters. We separate families. We do harm, and the cost to that harm in Rhode Island is pretty unique. So I'm just going to read some of that. EPI, I was honored to work with EPI, the Racial Justice Coalition, on this over the past couple of years. So I'm just going to read you some statistics. Even though it's boring, bear with me on this, all right?
Bear with you.
So 1 in 8 Rhode Islanders is living in poverty, right? That's bad. There should be no Rhode Islanders living in poverty. But when we look to Black and Latino workers, that number jumps to 1 in 5. We see that poverty has a race, it has a gender, it has a face, and it has a location. And we can get rid of that, but we have to have the will to do it. When we're looking at the rates of poverty, I can look at the heart where you're looking at overall it's 12%, but then I look at Latino brothers and sisters, 21.9% of them are living in poverty in Rhode Island. 22.4% of black folks are living in poverty in Rhode Island. Is that possible that we allow this to happen when I'm staring at buildings full of wealth, where I have a lottery company that's looted 130 nations around the world? That's a bank.
Burns right there.
right?
Yeah.
We have a building right there, white marble, staring, that you paid for and you built and you filled with people year after year who have to decide, and we have to hold their feet to the fire and say, a state that allows that poverty to exist, any poverty to exist, is not a state worth existing. That we can undo it, remake it, rebuild it in the image that we want to see it. Is that right?
Right.
So this new Poor People's Campaign that's going to carry on the legacy of Dr. King,
Thank you.
right? That is going to carry on a movement that when Dr. King, right before he was killed, and he renounced his I Have a Dream speech, and he said, he quoted Jimmy Baldwin, and he said, what point are we integrating if we're going to be integrating into a burning building, right?
Yes.
So now we are in that burning building. So we have a choice. It's try to save the timbers that are already there, or take it down piece by piece and build a new house that includes every one of us in it, with no more poverty, no more prison, no more ICE, and inclusion for every Rhode Islander, regardless of who they are. This is a march for justice, and we don't stop until we tear it down. Thank you.